Welcome back to Liquid Bullet Productions. This is part 2 with the man himself, Jimmy Tippett Junior. Thanks for coming back, Jimmy.
No worries, boy.
Nice to see you,
buddy.
mate. Yeah.
Okay.
What have you been doing since the last time I saw you?
Oh,
Not a lot. Been behaving yourself.
Getting over, just been having a real bad cough for about a week.
Yeah, I know, you sound like you've got
a bit of a bug going around, yeah.
I appreciate you carrying on doing the podcast.
No, listen, no, 100% listen, got to plod on. Got to
plod on, mate. Right, well, we'll jump straight back in it again, mate. I'm going to ask you a question now, just for a lot of viewers don't know, or the people that don't know about this, but what is the Underworld?
The Underworld. It's like, I call it the underground, don't they? It's underneath, isn't it? You've got society, and then you've got the people robbing, stealing, cheating, pretty much like the government, really, but just, yeah, they don't pay their taxes.
Don't start me off,
yeah,
Jim. Don't start me off.
No, it's a breed, isn't it? It's criminals. It's like gangsters. What's a gangster? Yeah. I never chose the title of my book, you know, Born Gangster. I wouldn't consider myself a gangster, more like a prankster. But no, a gangster is someone who works with like-minded people to obtain money illegally. Right, okay. So it means the police are gangsters, the government are gangsters. Anyone who's working with like-minded individuals to obtain money illegally is a gangster. So yeah, so you might have little firms that go out and might have a lot of it's drugs now. But then you've got your fraud, your armed robbers, which that's finished now. I would call the youngsters now, they're ruthless. I know a lot of youngsters, they'd go and serve you up for nothing. Yeah. But yeah. I treat all the youngsters with the total respect, because listen, I'm an old cat now. I don't want any problems. I know the young uns, and I look after all of them. Don't get involved in any criminality anymore. But I still go to boxing clubs, and I still go to boxing fights. I go to a lot of places where these people go. Yeah. But it's a different course now. But when we were growing up, the criminals and gangsters were different. I had someone I really used to look up to. You'd never hear about him in any books or anything. His name was Jimmy Brand. Jimmy Brand? Jimmy Brand.
Yeah, no, I've never heard that, no.
You might know the story, and I'll tell you in a sec. So Jimmy was about 6'3", built like a brick shithouse, black mop of hair, very good looking guy, but renowned round Greenwich, Woolwich, one punch Jim, once killed a guy with a single punch. Wow. But Jim was very rich, very involved. I can say it now, he's died, but he was a very, very big time pot dealer. So he was bringing over like tons and tons and tons of cannabis, earning absolute fortunes. Yeah. He used to wear a £250,000 big 5-carat baguette diamond ring on his little finger, £100 watch. Right. He had a chain full of diamonds. Every time he went out the house, he had £500,000 worth of jewellery on. He drove a Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible. He had a 58 Corvette Stingray. He used to love playing Elvis Presley. And he lived the dream. He was always in Blackheath. And I was like, wow, I want to be like him. You know, even though I had a dad who was 10 times better than Jim. But no, Jim was a real big, I ended up working for Jim. Earned a fortune with Jim actually, and really some big money, and that's what put me into the high life and experiencing the good things in life. But Jim, they would go out there was a little firm of them. And there was Paul Fitzgerald, an ex-boxer, who ran the doors in Woolwich, Butchie Arnold, right, every little firm, Kevin Wishart, Dave Mattis, Nicky Green. There was a proper little firm of these guys, all out Woolwich, Eltham, all ex-boxers or all naughty boys. And when they went in somewhere, you couldn't. I remember seeing a fight one day at the Lazy Tony Beckenham. They cleared out the whole place. There was bodies scattered everywhere. There was murders, there was phone calls going from every little firm. Reg Parker, who used to look after Lenny McLean, he was phoning up from Shapes Gym because one of his friends had been badly hurt, and it was very. That was what that world was. So you had your different little firms on different plots. Yeah. But my dad could walk into every different plot and be friends with every firm. Yeah, I know what you mean. Because for one, he could bash every one of them up anyway, and he was more naughty than all of them, but my dad had a little crew around him as well. Yeah. He had obviously his own little crew, Gypsy Tom, Terry Coombs, Terry Sharp, Arthur Morgan, Johnny Hendrickson, a black guy, Johnny Crittenden, a travelling guy out of West Wickham, who was worth millions and millions, and he had Black Sam, legendary underworld figure. But they had my dad had a team. If they got that team together, it was like the British Army. You couldn't.
The cream of the cream.
Yeah, they were the creme de la creme. They was like, if they walked in, everyone's arseholes would fall out.
Yeah,
listen, but my dad never had to do that. He could walk in somewhere on his own.
Yeah. So your dad, was he ever in the underworld?
Yeah, he was actively, because my dad was, no one ever knew what my dad was up to. My dad was one of these people, if he had his...
That's the best way though.
Yeah. Where he said, son, he said, listen, you pull out fucking grand. He said, I've got 10 grand on me. He said, but I'll pull out 100 quid. He said, you're the fool. He said, everyone wants to borrow 20 quid off you. Exactly. He said, listen, I never let anyone know what my left hand, you let everyone know what both hands are thinking. I never let, he said, little things he said to me, but he would also never look down on anyone. My dad once said to me, he said, look, gangsters are never going to earn you no money, son. He said, let me just, they always just go on the take. He said, because I said, Dad, why do you always sit with the window cleaner at the end of the bar? He went, son, I sit with the end of the window cleaner because he's an honourable man. He goes to work 9 to 5, cleaning windows, goes home to his wife and kids and puts his food on the table. Yeah. These gangsters go out, jump on a van, nick what they're nicking. He said, they might nick a grand. He said, then they go and spend it in the pub all day. Their missus is starving home with the kids crying and they can't afford to put electric on. He said, who's the real man? You tell me.
Yeah, that's true.
He said, and little things what he said, son, and also, those window cleaners, when they're my eyes and ears everywhere, they hear everything, and they put more work my way than anything. He said, see old Bill the window cleaner, you say, oh, look at him, silly daft old Bill the window cleaner, I went, he earned me 900 grand, son. I went, what do you mean, how did you earn 900 grand? He said, without going too much into my dad's business, but no, someone had left something somewhere, someone had got nicked, and my dad ended up having the parcel, sold the parcel, looked after the window cleaner, so he paid his mortgage off, had a nice car, put a little house down Whitstable. My dad ended up with like just under £1 million.
Lovely. Who was his closest pals? What?
My dad's closest friends was Terry Coombs, an ex-boxer from Eltham. He had Norman Johnson, very close friend who was from Liverpool. Yep. He was like working with the mafia and everything. He's got a book out called Black Eyes and Blue Blood, very good book. Gypsy Tom, Joey Collier, the scrap metal guy. Yep. You probably see he's got a Rolls Royce convertible with JC1 on the number plate. Goes all around Bromley all the time. Who's my dad's friend? Georgie Walker, Ronnie Olive, who was a big crime boss. Those were dad, Paul Moriarty. They was like my dad's real close friends.
Did you get to meet some interesting people?
Grew up meeting people like Donald Sutherland, Ronnie Scott, who owned Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club.
Yeah, I remember the Jazz Club.
My dad's mate, Frank Waterman, he was a speedway, motorway king. Bernie Eccleston, because he had Biggin Hill Airport, we used to live in Keston. So when Bernie was going through with Tamara and Petra, he'd always drop off on the way and pop in and see me dad. So Brian Cox, a famous actor, he was in X-Men.
I know Brian,
I don't know him. He's the one who wanted to do all the mutants in X-Men. He was a very good friend of my dad's. My dad seemed to, Bobby Ramsey was with the Cray twins, Dinah Dawes, do you remember Dinah Dawes?
Yeah.
She used to come up to the house for Sunday dinner.
Wow.
It was like Barbara Windsor, she was another close family friend. My dad, the house, when I used to come home from school, it'd be funny because you'd see like Ferrari outside with John One, which was my godfather. He was one of the richest scrap dealers in London. Okay, and you'd see that there and a few Range Rovers. You think, and I'd go indoors and there'd be Charlie Cray sitting with Barbara Windsor and my godfather, and then we'd be sitting having cups of tea, and then next thing you know, the bottle of LPR come out and then he'd walk round to the pub. And I think, as a kid, you never knew who was going to be in the house. I woke up one morning and Ray Winston's on the sofa. He'd been out with my dad the night before. He was like a young kid at the time. They was doing a series called The Fox.
Yeah, I remember The Fox.
And my dad played the referee and Ray was one of the boxers.
Right.
But no, it was just, it was like I suppose Gangster's Paradise. You never knew what Underworld was going to be there. I mean, Dave Courtney used to come up when I was a kid. It was like, my dad had a very big fondness for Dave. Me and Dave, we were like that. We were, I suppose, different characters. But no, my dad had a big fondness for Dave. He liked Dave a lot.
Did they ever involve you in their activities?
Of course they did, yeah. But a lot of those activities I never got caught for, so I only got caught. Good. People Google me on the internet, say, oh, he's nicked a fucking rig. But there's so much, they don't see all the major stuff, which I got away, which I suppose, But I've had a good living out of crime. But now, obviously, I got done for a diamond robbery in 2012, and I had to pay 100 and something grand. I've just had to pay the fine of 60 odd grand. It comes straight out of my inheritance.
Is that the POCA?
The Proceeds of Crime Act, 2003. I've paid it, it's all done. Dust and dusted, so I could go in a car, drive in a car, they can't take any asset off me, I'm free as a bird. And I've just had a second inheritance. One of my mum's friends died, and has left me a big house in Bermondsey, tyre yard in Forest Hill, and a house in Elmer's End.
Oh wow, nice.
But there's sitting tenants in 2 of those properties.
Okay.
So I've been doing a deal with a guy called Narinder at the moment to sort of buy the properties and pay all the taxes, and but it's something which could take.
Takes a little while.
Could take up to a year, yeah.
So who, out of all them people that you sort of met and under your dad's influence and everything else, who inspired you the most?
I think the most is one of my dad's friends, a Scouse guy called Norman Johnson. He was like the James Bond baddie, bald head. Used to wear a big 5-carat diamond, gold Rolex.
Like a pinky ring.
Pinky ring is like the size of a golf ball. But he had a big mansion in Stafford, right opposite County Showground. He ended up selling it to one of the hotel chains.
Blimey.
And he had like 30 acres there. But he had like a special framed picture, and he moved it, and he had a 38 Smith & Wesson there with big dum-dum 9mm bullets.
Really?
Yeah. Well, 30, whatever the cartridge, 38 for the cartridges.
Yeah.
It was a 38 like big massive cartridge. I thought, bloody hell, it's like, and it was like, and then he had the Porsche 928S, what Tony Montana had in Scarface.
Yeah.
He had the 911 Turbo, the Merc, and he changed those all. He'd had 5 Rottweilers in his like patrol dogs. He had special, as you drove into the house, he had these like rolling things, but at night he used to put a click on them and they would be spikes. So if anyone drove in, their tyres, it was like,
can't get nowhere near.
I know, and I thought they used to go out and then they'd fly off to Marbella, and I remember being 13 going to Marbella with my dad and his friends, and we was all at Freddie Foreman's club, Eagles Country Club, up in the hills near Port Banús, and it was like, I thought, this is it. All the women all had shoulder pads, like something out of Dallas. And I was like, all the geese had the white shoes, like the white snakeskin shoes, and all the big gold rollies, the little pinky rings. I thought, all like sitting there with the cut hair glasses. And I thought, this is a bit of me. This is what that was my sort of. I thought, and then I used to go round to my friends at school, and their mums and dads would like. I think, fucking hell, I couldn't live like that.
Yeah.
And then I'd go over to my house. I think my mum and dad was off up to Langhams in Mayfair. They were being invited to this place, and I thought, this is the life I want. That
was going to be my next question, basically. Is like your life. What was your life like? Having a dad in the underworld. How did that affect your life in general?
I didn't really see. I saw with my dad is obviously the gangsters, the naughty boys would turn up, or we'd go out for dinner, and we was treated different. So say we go to Langhams, which is a big place, it's in Stratton Street in Mayfair, it's my mum and dad's favourite restaurant. We would go into there, obviously the matron, D. Michael, his name was at the time, would come in, would get a big table at the front. And I remember Rod Stewart was sitting there with his wife one day, sitting having a meal, and they was moaning about the noise on our table.
Really?
But my dad had their back to it, he was smoking a cigar. So one of the miners has got up and approached. As my dad turned around, the miners took one look at my dad, walked up to Rod Stewart, went like that, and they left straight away. And it was like, I thought, fucking hell, this is, I like this is fucking power.
Yeah, that's Rod Stewart going out the door.
Or if me and my dad was in London or something, like went to a nightclub one night, Hippodrome with my friends, and Lenny McLean's in there, and he went, Jim, get here, I grabbed on me, he went, you're not hanging around with them Herberts, they're kicking off, you're not hanging around with them scumbags. I went, oh, for fuck's sake, Lenny went, yeah, let me go get you a bottle of Murray Chandon. I thought, fucking hell, look. He's got me a bottle, he went, yeah, he's got me a couple of birds over to talk to. He went, but I'm taking you home tonight. I went, Len, I want to go and see my friends. He went, nah, they're Herberts. He said, they're getting chucked out in a minute. He said, I'll take you home to your dad. I thought, for fuck's sake. So we've gone to Chinatown. At the end, he's got his big Lenny's Prince Wales check suit. Looks a fucking part, Lenny, big old lump. He's got his fucking fingerless leather gloves on. Go down, he's got I remember he had an E-Reg, Full Granada, and he's gone like here. Look, watch this, young Jim. Look. Did you do it? The central locking? Yeah. He went, oh, look at that, look. And he went, go on, and we went to Forest Hill. He went, let her take you for steak. So we went to some kebab house in Forest Hill. We had a steak. Took me back home. And my mum and dad lived in like great big house with great big like huge archways. You drive in down into the drive. Yeah. And my mum and dad had like Merck Sports there and all that. He went, I feel like a right silly tour I do now, Jimbo. I went, what do you mean? He went, well, have a look. He's getting my silly old Granada. Look at the cars your old man's eating big. He said, what the fuck's he done, your old man? Look, a fucking Jeep, fucking Mercedes, another Mercedes, a Porsche. He went, fucking hell, he's had it right off. So as he come in, my dad went, oh, look at that little puppy. Our Rottweiler was 13 stone. And he's going, oh, look at it, because he's so fucking big, Len. So my dad and Len ended up sitting in the kitchen having a cup of tea and a chat, and I remember going to bed. But no, it was, you had Johnny Madden, another mate of my dad's who run String Fellas. So as a kid, I could go in any club. Yeah. But Jimmy Tippett said, oh, and then I was watched all night. The drinks, you wouldn't have to no drinks to be paid for. Peter Stringfeld would go, oh, Jim, come up here and have a steak sandwich with us. And it would be like, all my mates were like, oh, wow. Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club. We used to go in, Peter King, who was the manager. Jimmy said, bang, champagne. Yeah,
like that scene at Goodfellas again, where they sit
any
you down
club, we would, it was exactly, because when I was out with my dad, Dad, it was just like we'd go to the WAG club, and his friend owned the WAG club, and we would just treat like movie stars. It was just, and I'd be with my dad, it was just, you'd seal the doorman like all over him, and it was like, it was just like walking out with the Godfather. That was the power.
That little story you just come out with about Lenny, we've done a podcast, an interview with Kelly. Hello Kelly, Kelly Nice.
Hello Kelly, yeah.
Kelly McLean. She'd love that story.
Yeah.
How did your dad treat you and your activities that you got up to? What was he like with you?
As a kid, he would always, I remember once, my mum's come home from school, I'd done really bad in maths, I've got like an E or something, she went, for fuck's sake, blah, blah, blah. My dad said, it's only a fucking thing, stop having a go at him. He's like, he's having fun, he's enjoying it, he's only a kid. My mum went, no, he's got to go and see a maths tutor. She went, maths is very important. He went, look, but he's not fucking shy when he comes to, he's up to spill, he can work at doing all the marking up, and he works out the bets and that. He's very clever that way, but I wasn't good academically, with the maths or English, but I wrote a book. So I remember once, a few days later, I'd set fire to something at school, messing about with Swan Vestas. We were lighting some papers up, and the squash courts nearly got up and caught the score light. So they said I was an arsonist, or said I was just, the police was involved. I got took home and I had to see some sort of a police worker for about 13 weeks. They come round and said the dangers of fire, which I suppose you go. And so it was quite funny, because then my dad's on the phone, someone's phoned him up, and he never really used the phone, my dad. He went, fucking hell, Jimmy's a boy, he's fucking, he nearly set the score like the little fucker. He said, you got to love him. And my mum went, what? She said, what is wrong with you? He sets the score like, yet you're so happy and proud of him. She went, what is fucking wrong with you? She said, but no, I think my dad had a different outlook to my mum. My mum tried her hardest to mould me and be a good boy. My sister, she was a stockbroker.
Blimey, there you go.
She went on to work in Goldman Sachs in New York. She was in Manhattan. She was all over Wall Street. We're
going to jump in. I'm going to touch on the death of your father, Jimmy Tippett Senior. Obviously, that was quite a shock for you when it happened. How did that affect you?
To be honest, I was quite relieved when my dad died, because when he got to 80, he suffered about 5 or 6 strokes, all within a couple of days. Right. It was like, my dad had always had a help. He smoked a cigar, he liked to drop a champagne, but he was never excessive. He loved his Indian food, and he always walked everywhere. Right. He still had a 6-pack at 80.
They did walk everywhere in them days, didn't they?
Yeah, and he wasn't a big drinker. He'd go out on Friday nights up to Bermondsey or the Old Kent Road with the boys, or over to East London. But he was, when he was in the home, we just saw him, just went on a decline.
Straight down, yeah.
And it was just, and I was living in Brighton at the time.
They're not dad anymore then, are they?
No, but the funny thing is, he always knew me. But my mum was there, and he'd go, hello Jim, all right son? I went, hello Dad. He went, who's that? Well, it's your wife, you silly fucker. He went, what do you mean? I said, he said, she's nice looking, isn't she? I went, you should know, you've been married for 40 odd years. He went, have I? I went, yeah, but and my mum was sitting there crying, because she was like nearly 20 years younger than my dad. Yeah. And I went, and she went, out of all the bad things you've done, and he knows who you are, yeah, I've loved him, and I've been with him every day, he doesn't even know who I am, I'm a stranger. She went, it shows shows the bond me and my dad had.
Yeah, was it dementia that he got?
Yeah, dementia, and then he eventually died of bowel cancer.
What did your mum think about all this that was going on and his life that he was living?
My mum never ever knew what my dad was up to, because he was so clever. Really? My dad never used the phone box. He only ever used the phone box when he could use the phone cards. He never used the same phone box once. Yeah. He'd always go on meetings. He changed his cars regularly. If my dad was driving the car, I'd still do this to this day. If he had friends or get in the car or whatever, he'd go take the car to the cleaners, or he'd clean it himself. He'd go clean it, do it. He had a window lead. Oh, why'd you do that? So he said, it was fingerprints, son. He did not. He never leave any numbers laying about. He was very, very. As a kid, I remember he kept everything. He used to have a big cigar box. He used to smoke Cohiba cigars. He loved the Cohiba, and he had a big cigar box, big massive one, like a humidor thing, and he'd have like a knife. He used to have a big lock knife, a blackjack, which is American Kosh, his phone book, and all these little bits and bobs, which he's like little knickknacks, which that was secret. So whenever we got raided a few times as a kid, I remember getting these boxes, and I had a bed which lifted up with springs where you put all so I put it there. The police never even couldn't find it. So my dad went, where's my? I said, I took it, Dad. He went, oh, good boy, well done. Hatch, so no, it was like, but it was like an unwritten code. It was like as soon as that happened, we got raided. My dad got arrested for the Brighton bombing.
Blimey.
because my mum woke up, there's all like terrorists, like coppers there, all ski masks on with machine guns.
Yeah.
Because my dad was looking after a guy called Brian Whitty, who was a big Irishman from Dublin,
right.
and he had the building contract to the hotel, the Grand Hotel in Brighton.
Blimey.
So obviously, and then my dad's best friend was Georgie Walker, who was building Brighton, what was it, Marina. He had the.
Oh yeah.
So Georgie Walker and Billy Walker, his brother, was the blonde bomber. They were both heavyweight boxers.
Okay.
But Georgie was one of my dad's very close friends. Very big character.
Yeah.
And a big gangster as well.
Now, the death of your mother, you said that was quite recently as well.
My mum was diagnosed with cancer about. She died last August, August the 10th, and she was diagnosed with cancer a year before that. And at the time, I was living in Brighton, and I got set up. Basically, I was on licence from a previous prison sentence, and I was up in York. It was 17th of December 2019. December 17th 2019, and I was in York, and I noticed being followed, and I had a lump of money on me, and I was with a couple of girls partying, and we've gone back to these apartments at Whitefoot Gate, I think it is, or something, at the bottom part of York it was, and about 3 in the morning we were all partying in the room, we were doing the Charlie and the drink and all that, and got the music on the telly.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do. And next thing I thought, Jimmy! So I thought the girls had set me up, so I took my watch off and slid it under the sofa.
Yeah.
So I thought they were trying to set me up for my watch.
Yeah.
Next thing I looked out the blinds, because we was on the ground floor apartment, and there must have been blue lights here, it must have been about 20, 30 armed coppers.
No.
And I'm like, fuck, so I thought, well, I've got nothing to worry about. I had a bit of bugle on me, so I put that down my trousers, got my watch back out. I went to the girls, I'll see what it's about. I don't know what it is. So they went, Jimmy, put your hands on your head and do pigeon steps to the car. Now, I've been drinking all night. Fuck, you try putting your hands on your head. It disorientates you. As I got to the car, the coppers then done me with the rifle. Well, they're doing their job, I suppose. He's got the gun in his hand. He went, I'm arresting you for the robbery on Liberty's nightclub, blah, 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 3 weeks before. I went, do what? He went, what, you said yes? I went, what? No, I didn't fucking say yes. And so I had about $4 cash on me. So as I got to the station, they took me to the station, they went, well, you've been arrested for this armed robbery, you're going to be transported back to Brighton. But there was 3 lots of armed police. They said, the coppers couldn't believe it. They said, they said I'd been involved with a firearm, and I'd sent you the bit of paperwork, Roy. But they said I got into this club with a handgun and took 60 grand out of a safe. Blimey. This dog in Brighton called Buster, no good, rotten little bastard he is, but that's his nickname. So, this is what happened. So they set me up. They got someone to do a statement to say I'd done this. So where I'm on licence, I'm going to get recalled, aren't I? Yeah. So then they can do something whatever they want to do. So I went to the police station. They said we're going to bail you on the armed robbery charges because there's no evidence, but we're going to. But the probation deemed me to be a danger to the public because of the gun. Right. And wanted me recalled to jail and let the parole board make their mind up. Gotcha. So while I was going on, all this COVID nonsense was going on. Right. Okay. So I was eventually. So obviously, I had the $4 I had on me in cash. I got my mum to try and get it back. She went and got me watch back and that from the police station, and then they said, no, the $4 he still owes a pocker. So it turned out I'd paid 30 grand confiscation in 2012, but there was still an outstanding figure of 67,000. Oh right, so they held. So they held that $4 and deleted it. So this is when I realised I still had a benefit figure outstanding. Jesus. So then I come out of prison on April the 4th. It was like ghost town. There was no one about. I come out of Rochester prison. Yeah. It was like a ghost town. And then also I had to state my mum's as part of my parcel as conditions of my licence. So my friends was having parties in Bradford during COVID, so we used to go to penthouse parties and have a party. Now, my ex-girlfriend got hold of me, called Melissa Belshaw. She lived in Wigan. And she said, oh, I'm not going through some shit with my boyfriend. Can I come and see you? I said, of course you can. So then, all of a sudden, I was getting ready to go to the party on the Friday. I was just going shopping because you had to go out at certain times during COVID, didn't you? And things like very military. And the next thing you know, my friend phoned me, Jodie, and he went, Gee, I've got some bad news. I went, what? He went, Jodie, Melissa got murdered last night. I went, what? This was on the Thursday. He went, yeah, yesterday afternoon. He said, the boyfriend's gone round there, stabbed her to death. No, mate. Oh, you're joking, but I had a text message saying she was coming to meet me on the Friday. Oh, my God. And when they found the body, my book was on the side. And it said, to my future wife, Melissa. So, so the mum phoned me and all that. She was absolutely lovely woman, Jean, and the daughter, Kelsey. So I ended up going to the funeral, which was up in Wigan. after they let the body go after a few months, and it was really, and I went through a really bad time, and I thought, to see someone 32 get murdered, I thought, and then COVID going on, my head was going on, and then my mum's said, look, I've got cancer. I've got terminal cancer.
Tipped you over, didn't it?
Then I saw a medium on FaceTime.
Did you? Really?
Yeah, I'm into all this stuff. Yeah. So I saw a medium, and she said things. She said, you need to go and see Bobby. That was my uncle, Bobby Clark, famous poker player. He died 3 days later.
No.
My mum died, as the medium predicted, in her sleep. She predicted this girl was attached to herself to me, this Melissa, the spirit. That's why I was feeling weak and wanting to take sleeping tablets all the time. Right, it was this medium told me and guided me through this experience.
It's amazing when they come out.
And I'll tell you now, to this, she predicted everything to this day. And she said, I mean, I'm not blowing my own trumpet or anything, not for the camera, but no, she said, you're going to be very, very big in television. And I said, no, but she predicted things. She said about this, the job in Brighton, she said, there's a geezer, Gareth, Grass. This Gareth was like a friend of ours who'd been involved. He was from Brighton. Yeah. He looked like a young Ken Barlow, right slimy, horrible cunt. Never had a pot to piss in. Always he'd take someone's drink off the bar, you know, horrible, vile. He'd try and slip into your birdie, you know, like one of those, vile creature. But he was the one who gave the police the information where I was in York, or this buster. They'd all worked it out between them to get me nicked. Because they couldn't handle the way I was living or what I'd performed some sort of stunt or something, they didn't like it. But they tried to set me up. But unfortunately, I fall down a shitty well, I can't smell in a creed. Yeah. That's just the way it happens in my life. I'm very lucky. Yeah.
So your poor mum, she's had to put up with all of this. What was her sort of saying?
She always tried to. She didn't talk to me for a lot of years.
Really?
We had sporadic moments, me and my mum. She's a very strong lady.
Your mum, did she sort of agree with you and your dad being involved in the underworld?
With my dad, she did, because he never brought trouble home to the door. He had a lot of money. No one knew what he'd done. Yeah. And he was the man. There was no one bigger than my dad. And he had a fantastic way of conducting himself, and he had a good circle of friends. But I think he was the drugs with me. My mum hated, any mum's going to hate to see. I was the love of her life. I was her son. But when she died, a few days before she died, she said, let me just tell you something, I'm so proud of you now. She said, the first time in 49 years, I could say you're a shitbag. She went, but today I feel proud of you. She said, because you've been a man, you've stepped up to the plate when it's mattered. You've come in looking after me, bringing me fags in, doing everything. You love the dogs, you've done this, you're looking after the house. She said, I can honestly say I'm proud of you, I'm proud to call you my son. She went, I know it's been a long time, she went, but please don't let me down, and do me one favour, don't spend my inheritance on whores and coke. Mum, sorry, no.
Yeah, that one is very difficult. So what was your dad's role, really, in the underworld?
He was, what did my dad say? He had a funny way of putting it, my dad. He said, I'm a problem solver, son. I said, what do you mean? He said, when someone comes to me, they've got a problem, I solve it. Yeah. And I said, well, so what do you mean? He went, I'm a problem solver. I went, so what's your job title? He said, son, people come to me, they've got a problem, I solve it, they pay me, and that's life. He said, and then other people come to me with problems and I solve them. I said, but how do you solve them, Dad? He said, he just look at, he had these, as Paul Stockton says, my dad had magical eyes. He could look at you in his eyes. He had this fantastic aura. He was invincible. To me, he was Superman. I remember at school as a kid, they made us stand on our little chairs. They went, who's your superhero? And it was like little kids stand up and go, mine's Superman. Everyone go, the Hulk. And the little girls stand up and go, Wonder Woman. I started, my dad. He went, no, don't be silly. How can he be? I said, he is a superhero to me. He's my hero. Yeah. And it was like, I remember Mr. Fraser. I was about 7, 8 years old in primary school, and I went, my dad's my hero. He's my superhero. And I used to remember Dad picked me up from school, and I'd be so excited to see him. Yeah. I love my dad so much. I never loved anyone like my dad in real life.
Did you always want to follow in his footsteps?
Yeah, I think but I think with my dad, I was always in his shadow. I could never have been in my dad's shoes.
It's difficult not to.
Listen, say what, I couldn't be 10% of the man my dad was. He was just legendary status. There would never be. He was the last of the Mohicans. He is. To speak about, that's why I'm doing his book with Julie Shaw. He's a fantastic man. He deserves the best person to write it.
We're going to wrap it up now. It's the end of part 2, Jimmy.
Thank you.
There's been another exciting part 2. Look out for part 3. We're going to go into Does Crime Pay, and Jimmy's new book that he's writing, the activities they used to get up to in the old days, life in general, mate, and where you're going to go from now. So I'll see you in part 3, Jimmy.
Cheers. God bless.
All the best.
Thanks.